And welcome to the Virtuous American Podcast with Bogar, your host. And today we have our cabinet member, Mike, Mojo Mike. And we're going to be discussing the topics that have been hitting the world today as of May 18th, 2020. And so we're going to go ahead and talk about all sorts of subjects. But first, I think, and foremost, we want to go ahead and tally up what's going on with the coronavirus and see how it is that it's affecting us personally and how we can try to move forward as best as possible. So I have here up, Mike, Mojo, Mike, I have here up the Bing COVID-19, and you have a different source. Is that right?
Yeah, I have both pulled up, but yeah, I've been using a different COVID-19.
Excellent. So why don't we go just together through this? That way we can do a double-blind placebo on this without for the listeners at home. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the USA. And what are your numbers saying as far as the active cases? Do you know?
Yeah. The one I have actually has active cases confirmed with a little plus number on the like a number on the top that says, like, right now it says 154 or I'm sorry. 1,541,000, and then on the top it has a plus 22,000, meaning that today there are 22,315 cases that are going to be confirmed and tacked onto the tally tomorrow.
And those are active, right? Those are active cases?
Yes, those are currently confirmed cases. What does yours say on that?
So mine says it has 1,158,300, and a new one's reported today as of, like I said, the 18th. Is 13,837. And so in fatalities here in the USA, according to Bing, it's 90,694 fatalities. So what is your saying? Is it similar?
Yeah, 90,691 plus with another 685 that'll be reported at the end of the day. Did you say your confirmed cases on yours was one? How much did you say it was?
1,158,294.
That's almost a difference of 400,000 between the two. Because mine's 1,541,000
active cases. Is that globally, or is that only in the U.S.?
That's only in the U.S. Yeah, 1,541,000. You said yours is 1,140.
1,158.
Wow, that's a whole difference.
300,000 difference. Yep. Yeah. But on the fatality cases, it seems like they're pretty accurate.
Yeah. What about your recovered? Did you what's your recovered?
On my recovered, it says there are 288,842.
Mine says 279,000 with another 8,000. So it's similar numbers once the tally's tallied up at the end of the day.
And yeah, that's absolutely true. So it looks like, this is one thing that I think that it's so crucial. For the reason that I think that we should do this is because the facts are so up in the air. And we need to be able to go ahead and look at different sources and be able to cross-reference and say, okay, what seems more accurate? So I think that it's pretty accurate to say that 90,700,000 people die. Even if we're off 4 or 5, in either direction, I think that's pretty fair to say that 90,694 Americans have perished to COVID-19. And so it's extraordinary to see that the fact that our nation, under our Constitution, which is supposed to guarantee the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and now we are encountered by a government that is equivalent in so many ways, it seems like, to other countries that aren't doing that, if not worse, like countries that have constitutions that don't necessarily flat out say that those specific things are taking care of their people more than us. I mean, you look at even a country that American Cold War hawks hate, like Russia, and they are struggling. They are absolutely struggling. And of course, as we know, the reported cases that are coming from them could be anomalous, right? They could be less or they could be more. But according to Bing, I have here that Russia has 290,000 confirmed and only 2,722 dead. Now, again, this is according to Bing. What does yours say, my friend?
2,000, I'm sorry, 290,000, with another 8,000 on the way, confirmed, and then around 2,700 deaths with another 91 on the way.
Right. See, we're exactly identical in those.
What are your
those
recovered
numbers.
on there?
70,209.
70,209. Yeah. It's interesting that I'm using newsbreak.com, and you said you're using Bing. I'm very curious to see where they're getting their information from and who's funding them necessarily. Because it's very funny that there's a discrepancy of like almost 400,000 for the U.S. But for Russia, like the numbers are spot on, and I think obviously we may have taken on an authoritarian streak right now, the U.S. But in no way are we, close in proximity to China or to Russia in terms of that the amount of control that the government has over truth.
Absolutely. I think you start seeing that kind of in the news, right? And who it is that controls it. And that's why I think it's so important that you mentioned who is it that funds them, because as we know, Bing is obviously funded by Microsoft, which is Bill Gates. So I mean, these numbers being lower than the other estimation, for those conspiracy theorists out there, how does that serve his purpose?
When you say his purpose, you're referring to
the conspiracy theories that exist that think that he wants some sort of a vaccine on purpose.
You're talking about Donald Trump. I wasn't sure if you were talking about Trump or Putin.
No, I'm talking about Bill Gates in this regard.
Oh,
because you know how there's that new conspiracy theory about him and how his vaccines and all of this, and how now there's a big chunk of people out there that are really going against Bill Gates for funding sorts of projects that are
if you would
humanitarian.
I heard that Bill Gates and again I want to state obviously for the record for your audience that this is something that literally just came into my earshot, like throughout this is something that entered the stream of my consciousness throughout my existence here in this world. I heard that and again, I want to preface this, I'm not trying to Alex Jones you here, but I heard that some of the vaccines that Bill Gates had given out, him and his wife, the Bill and Miranda Gates Foundation, some of the vaccines that they had given out in Africa were actually had a sterility effect on part of the population. So I don't know how much truth there is, but I do know that there are. They're not immune to the conspiratorial, the conspiratorial mindset, which not all conspiracies obviously are untrue. The conspiratorial mindset, though, however, is not the healthiest. I mean, Alex Jones is a great example. I mean, you look at Alex Jones and you don't see necessarily what I would call a healthy person. If your idea of health is being level-headed, and even-keeled and balanced, I mean, he's a very angry guy. But yeah.
Well, I think that's why it's so crucial for us to go ahead and discuss the fact that that we're looking at something that's backed by him, right? Because and how there's a discrepancy, right, of there being less reports on here than there are on the other ones. Because I mean, like in the same way, like it's not every conspiracy is wrong. But then let's go ahead and actually look at the conspiracy theories as we go along and say, okay, well then how come Microsoft would want a lower number? Wouldn't you then? If they had more merit, wouldn't their numbers be hyperinflated? Wouldn't they be more fearful?
Yeah, because it speaks to motive, obviously. That's really the key element of what I was getting at when I was bringing that up is who would want to underreport numbers? Obviously, like certain countries have been accused of doing that recently, and I do believe that Anyways, sorry about that. I do believe that the reason that the authoritarian countries like Russia and China are underreporting their numbers is because of the fact that, you know, they don't want the pandemic to seem as bad. And I would not put it past our current president and administration to be inclined to do the same thing, but not able to do it on the scale, of course, that those authoritarian countries are from. So, but yeah.
So I think that I think that's a really excellent point. And so as we were saying, so now that we've seen these multiple perspectives as far as this goes, like you said with Russia, uh, the amount of clampdown on information that there's been, that's why it's so weird for us to hear things like that when people say, quote, the media is the enemy of the people, right? When that's such that's word for word stolen from a former dictator, right? And so I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy how information has become so taboo. Like facts have become this thing where, you know, they almost don't matter anymore. They're almost like we've managed to turn, in the age of misinformation, we've managed to turn facts into opinions and opinions into facts somehow. It's very, very fascinating.
so it's really interesting that you mentioned that. One of my favorite filmmakers is BBC's Adam Curtis, and he creates his films to kind of go ahead and put into perspective the reality of what is propaganda, right? And how propaganda began by ages ago, and how it's been used to manipulate women into wanting to smoke, and you know, certain objects were where they went ahead and they started getting different strategy groups. For example, the focus group, the play acting through different parts of what they're doing. And for example, sampling out objects, all these different methods that were created and that are now being applied through campaigns, right? And this is what he went ahead and he looked at, is that now, for example, if we take a look at Cambridge Analytica, what they did was disseminate all the information that was taken through Facebook, because Facebook, what it really is a technologically advanced hypercomputer that goes ahead and can create groups and can decipher you and put you into different categories based on what you like, what you don't like, what you ignore, what you look at, even for how long you look at it, and all of these different things. And people underestimate the power of that knowledge being in someone's possession, because if I know what you can tolerate to look at, even if I can tolerate what you find disgusting, then I can manipulate it, then I can push it onto you, then it can be used. And so when Adam Curtis is taking a look at these things, like the essentials of what it means to be a contrarian, or to go ahead and hyper normalize things that should be absurd, he just goes ahead and he is excellent at making sure that people in Britain are able to not have that sort of that shield where they are penetrated all the time through outside actions by Russians, and through other forces that are trying to propagandize, because that's the reality, is that propaganda is a real thing, and when it can be injected into our country, when it can be, you know, used to manipulate, when we all use Xboxes, when we use PCs, when I have a Microsoft Surface computer that I'm using, and we've been using it for 20 years, and now all of a sudden there is this massive mistrust of Bill Gates. It's like, okay, so then should we stop playing our Xboxes? I mean, what they might be self-destruct boxes. They might be,
Yeah.
you know, it's just, you know, why, how is it possible that these lies, like the ones that were injected by Kanye West into our bloodstream, can, just like that, something that everybody uses, can be used to inject us with something like that. It is such a powerful maneuver, because it's almost like a quadruple compounding effect, right? You have the mistrust of billionaires. You have the mistrust of someone who would offer you a vaccine to enter your body. You mistrust someone who has a technological power to go ahead and be in your house as it is. And yet you are so stupid, that you're so goofy or so ignorant or so veiled, that you don't see that you're using all these things, and that you are a hypocrite by making fun of these things, by hating on it. But it's just, at the same time, like you said, not every conspiracy is a lie, right? But like Hitler said, the best big lies have a shred of truth in them, right? Because if they have no truth upon which they can even be shredded upon, then they will forever and just completely be ignored. So, I think that when we discuss that sort of a thing, it's the authoritarianism has been imposed by those who know how to manipulate media and how to manipulate marketing. And that's why I think that it's so crucial for us to go ahead and try to help the readers, help the viewers, the listeners at home decipher what is real, and how to, or at least what is actually going to help them, right? Because sometimes what's real isn't going to help you, and sometimes what that thing that's not going to help you isn't good. So
oh, sorry, go ahead.
And the hard choices are almost always so full of responsibility, right? And that's what, but people can't make those choices at all if they don't have information, if they don't have at least an understanding of how we got that information. Because so that's why it's cool that we were able to go ahead and take a look at those two sources. Now, did you have anything to add before we move on to something else?
Oh yeah, plenty.
Go ahead.
Well, it's funny because when you bring up Cambridge Analytica, it reminded me for a moment of gerrymandering, which is for a very short definition, voting is when voters pick a candidate, and gerrymandering is when candidates pick their voters. It's a way to game the system, which the people have been doing for a very long time. And Cambridge Analytica is they've put a new power in the ability to manipulate information to achieve a result, whether that result was achieved by information that was true or not being irrelevant, not being a factor really. Which is, again, it kind of just goes with the whole thing that you're saying about our relationship with the truth at this point, and where we stand as a country, and unfortunately, the U.S. is not alone in that right now. This is as a world. You look at it started with conservatism, Europe, like with the continent, at least, not the European Union anymore, but like with England, with I believe it's Boris Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a whole list of other authoritarian, off the top of my head, I couldn't even name them at the moment, but a whole laundry list of other authoritarian leaders being elected.
I think, my friend, I think you've literally just coined something. And I think that it's something incredible. Digital gerrymandering. And I don't think anyone has ever said that before, but that is literally what they're doing. By segmenting off and grouping off these people and then picking on them, either in a negative way by throwing negative ads at them, in the same way that you throw garbage into the ghetto, in the same way that you throw drugs into the ghetto, you can throw misinformation, you can throw hate memes, you can throw shit posting, as they call it, onto that same stream. In the same way as a bloodline, as a blood goes, you can do that. In the same way as a neighborhood goes. I had never once seen it as digital gerrymandering, but I think you literally coined that phrase today. Go ahead.
If anything, well, thank you. And I think it's almost like ideological gerrymandering in a way. Well, because if you look at like a gerrymanderer, somebody who is picking the voters, and what Cambridge Analytica does is they almost in a way pick the ideas that the voters are going to be exposed to, and with their target data, which is way more impressive than people might think. You and I both know that, actually. We have experience in marketing and syntax and all that stuff. The ability to spot chinks in the armor, if you will, of a voter who may be swayed to the other side is a lot easier than most people think. And so you have this, which of course, if we lived in a world where truth was, where like, for example, it was illegal to put out a lie, that wouldn't be nearly as bad of a thing. It would still be manipulative. However, now it's obviously, most candidates don't even fund their own, most of their own attack ads. All the attack ads are paid for by, Freedom Press Bagel Bites, a subsidiary of, some company that nobody's ever heard of before, which is obviously going to be a shell company. But yeah. Anyway,
in that same way now, the shell game has been transmuted into something else. So now it's not only become where the political attack ads come from super PACs. That's almost too obvious. Now they come from anonymous, random Facebook pages that have a massive following because they create great memes, and they're super offensive against a specific person. You know what I mean? And it's like when you can go ahead and then you're not even close to that. You're not even the one who mentioned the fact that, oh, I'm going to put a Star of David here next to your head, or I'm going to put a cross on your thing. I had nothing to do with that. That was just some follower that I don't even know about in some basement, And so it creates this massive degree of separation. But again, to feint ignorance to that sort of a dark maneuver is the reason that we're able to go, that we get so flipped, you know what I mean? The reason that we get so harassed, because we are sometimes the mind isn't capable of deciphering those things quick enough.
Yeah, and it's funny because as the politicians, like we were saying with the third party attack ads, as they try to distance themselves from the, oh, well, congressman, you're on the debate stage, and you said that your opponent, and I quote, likes to poop in urinals, in public restrooms. I never said that, actually. I apologize. I have some very motivated followers and a lot of people that work for us and companies that sign on and things like that. And obviously we can't vet everything. They're so professional at putting distance between themselves, and it's obviously it's hypocritical, and it blows my mind sometimes, because we look at the current the current president and how he got there on this cornucopia, this parade of profane and just vulgar statements, and everybody's like, well, how could somebody vote for somebody like that? And I will give this to Donald Trump. At least he has the nerve, or the insanity, to stand behind the obnoxious things that he's not pretending like he's like it's not coming out of his mouth. He's not afraid to say something. I mean, in the moment, at the very least. You fast forward to well, Mr. President, did you what do you have to feel about that? He'd be like, I never said that, but which, I mean, it's just crazy, the boldness. But I do see the parallel between the two. And I find that dichotomy interesting, and seeing that Donald Trump's genuine disingenuousness won out over the traditional political attack ads and the traditional political campaigns in general.
So I think that when you discuss that, I think it makes total sense, because and I think that people underestimate a lot of times, and it's to our own peril. I think that people can at times throw things off that are silly sometimes, or things that might seem like a dandy, or things that might seem exaggerated, or things that might seem, or for example, if you tell your girlfriend, oh my God, you're the love of my life, and I love you and I just can't live without you. You're a piece of my soul, and all these words or whatever, right? Then, as opposed to saying, hey, please just don't leave, like stay. Like it's they both mean the same thing, but one carries a different strength to it.
Yeah, one's got more emotion and obviously because of that more impact on the mind of the receiver of the statement. Yeah.
And people, I don't know if it's again a symptom of the American of us people who have become too civilized, too bookish, too focused on the achieving an A, a B, or whatever the hell it is, a 4.0, as opposed to learning the material and understanding the material and processing the material and using it and growing it. How is it possible that people leave university with such a high amount of debt when the whole purpose of it is to help you avoid those sorts of catastrophes, right? And yet they don't do that. There's none of that. And then yet you add to it the fact that the same people then vote for someone who is not of their, even close to their own capacity, right? And yet those people don't lack the awareness to impose their willpower to go ahead and stand behind the education that they've received and say, hey, the 4 years I spent there, I was studying 6 hours a day every day, and I learned from professors who have been in multiple countries, who have worked for decades, and I studied under their wing, and therefore I am basically a mirror image of these guys. Hire me. They don't have the willpower or the like you said, the balls, right, to go ahead and believe that, like, and fit into that role. And yet this is something that is completely within everybody's grasp, not just his, not just mine. And this is why I have you on. This is why you're such a valuable piece of this, because I believe, whether anybody else believes it or not, that our president is manipulating and playing with the dark arts. He's playing with the psycho-cybernetics, with the mental scotomas, with the mental tics that the American people have, and he is abusing them. And the reality is that if you have no awareness, if you have no even vocabulary to describe what it is that is being played with, then we can never understand it. And so that's why it's so critical for us to go ahead and even have this, like, for example, digital gerrymandering. Like I said, that is a powerful phrase, because once we realize that we are being gerrymandered online, then we need to be able to demand something that erases that, right? Because I think that when people understand what gerrymandering is and just transmute it to the digital, I think that it should create a harder sense of disgust as to what's being done to the American people,
Yeah, I was watching a rerun of a Bill Maher episode, and they were talking about there was a blonde woman who wasn't Ann Coulter, for a change, on she's one of the few that keeps showing up there, and Ann Coulter, I gotta say, I do respect the fact that when she goes up on a stage for a lot of what she's on TV for, 90% of the time, she knows that nobody up there is going to agree with her. And yet she still is out there, putting herself out there with her opinions, as wacky as they are. And then there, I don't believe that there's any crime in being wrong. And again, that's a perspective thing. Obviously, to Ann Coulter, obviously she's not wrong. The person calling her wrong would be wrong, and that's just a perspective thing. But there is something to be said that for someone to stand up and speak their mind politically, even though they know that 90% of the people in the room are not. They not only do they not want to hear it, but they might even be offended. There's power in that. There's power in that type of thing.
Absolutely, and so it's almost like an embrace of self that even if you're wrong, You know, when people don't do that, when people don't embrace who they are or what their brain power is saying, there will always be latching onto someone else's brain, and that will always be a vacuous and empty power, a vacuous and not real, a fake strength. But at the same time, the knowledge that they received should have been real, right? It should have been real, and so there should have been women who have the capacity to debate and culture without losing their shit, with facts, and equally as aggressive, equally as succinct, equally as in her face, equally as rude as she is, but in her direction. And yet because rudeness is also a tool, right? I mean, being aggressive is also a tool in people's chests. And yet it seems like these college educated people have self-neutered or have relaxed themselves to the point where, I don't know, I'm not a professional, I just don't know, it's beyond me. I couldn't possibly tell you, when they are the ones that we were expecting to be able to tell us.
Yeah.
And that is
this whole college generation, the one that's come up, all of the millennials that came to save the world. Well, we're doing a hell of a job so far.
and it's almost like it's a lack of belief, and it brings me back to my favorite director, Adam Curtis, right? He says he has this film, it's beautiful, it's called Oh Dearism, right? And it talks about how one of the greatest powerful maneuvers that a person could put you in is in the position of learned helplessness. It's to be beaten down into submission so much that you almost expect the next beating to come, and the next beating that comes, you almost feel like you deserve it, and like it's normal, like like, well, this is just part of life. And when that happens,
you acclimate to it. Yeah, you come to accept it as, like, this is just it's beyond you at that point. Yeah.
And when we accept that, it's when someone can put you into that position, when it's like, you know what, this is super crude, my listeners, but when a person farts or burps in your presence and they have no shame in it, it is almost like a sign of disrespect, because because they are trying to tell you that their aroma is more important than your entire well-being, and it can be very disrespectful if the person has no shame in it, because it's a way of saying that you should eat my shit, tolerate my stench, and you should tolerate this. And yet we look at one of your favorite guys, I think it was Bob Proctor, or I think it was Carnegie. He said that poverty tolerance, right? How much poverty do you tolerate? How much disgust do you tolerate? How much crude language do you tolerate? How much of everything, of all these different things that you tolerate? Because however much you tolerate is what you get. And I think that it's interesting, but when you're being beaten down into submission by someone else, like in the way that Adam Curtis describes, without your head even knowing, to the point where they make you think that you're the one who's making yourself crazy, then that becomes the most powerful form of self-defeat, right? Because then you don't even realize who the enemy is anymore. You just you blame it on yourself.
It's kind of like that old saying about the most enslaved people are those who falsely believe that they're free. That whole, what you were saying really reminded me of that. It's like those people, the like the ones you were referring to are like people who it's not even so much I believe that they view themselves as defeated, so much as they don't like, victory isn't even like a pull for them. It's not an option, and unfortunately it's a shame that there are people out there like that are have those kind of views about themselves, because I personally believe that all human beings, whether you're misinformed or not, whether you're Republican or Democrat, any country or whatever. I think all human beings have something to contribute to the community of the species and to the ideological well from that, thanks to the age of information and misinformation, we all draw upon together.
And this brings me back to why I made that I made that tribute to John F. Kennedy's speech, where he talks about on his commencement speech, right, when he talks about how I speak therefore as the necessary rational end of rational men. I speak that the pursuit of peace is not as dramatic as the pursuit of war, and frequently the words of the pursuer fall on deaf ears, but we have no more urgent task. And I mean, just this alone, right? The fact that we have, like, that this should be the primordial task, is that to pursue this not dramatic, this boring, this monotonous pursuit of peace. But you know, people like drama, and so that's why we're here, and that's why
they strong emotion. You know, earlier we were talking, and I was funny. It was funny because the different ends of the political spectrum have always played on different emotions, the Republicans and the Democrats. And of course, you know, if you look at your history, you know, the parties have switched sides occasionally, you know, one becoming the more conservative and one becoming the more, you know, progressive. But in I would say in our generation, our age group, that the Republicans before Donald Trump would play on the emotion of fear and division, but they were playing these soft, like, you know, like, hi, I'm Jazz Conway, and here's the acoustic kind of be afraid of Muslims and black people, but not really, you know. Whereas Donald Trump came out and just said, "What up? I'm Donald Trump," and wow, and said all those horrible things about Mexico, which I obviously don't want to repeat, but you get where I was going with that. It's Donald Trump was, if you ask me, I think politically speaking, he was just in the right place at the right time in our history. You know, the Republican Party was in a very you know, you look at the Tea Party and everything that was going on there. There's so much anger, and nobody was harnessing it. And finally, you know, the conductor came over and tapped his wand and began the orchestra, the symphony of fear mongering that unfortunately has, I believe, has unfortunately affected both sides of the aisle now. I'm afraid that because of how successful Donald Trump was, and by the way, I'm more critical about Donald Trump than I am Republicans individual as a political party. But I do worry, unfortunately, that the Democrats are going to learn from this, because at a certain point you have to ask yourself, you know, like, how come the Republicans, you know, if they are the minority in the country, so to speak, how do they keep winning? And this actually brings us full circle back to the Ann Coulter thing, because the blonde lady I brought up, it was on a Bill Maher episode, and they said, well, you know, Donald Trump. She was like, Donald Trump, you know, won the election, and somebody said, well, you know, not the popular vote, and she and this lady, she said, well, you know, I guess it sucks that our elections aren't based on that, you know, since we live in a representative republic, huh? And the audience kind of booed, and I understand why, because it seems like cheating. But the thing is, we haven't said as a country that that's not okay, and
exactly,
we've left that door open, so we
tolerated it.
Exactly. We the corruption level, so to speak, just like the corruption levels in the country, we've come to expect it as the norm. It'll never get better, and there is no better. It's just get through to the next day and keep your head down. And it's very funny how this conversation went full circle. And the
It
whole
really
time,
did.
the whole time, you know what I was thinking secretly in the back of my head? I find Ann Coulter very attractive. And I can't tell you for the life of me why.
Hey,
terrifying. But
you want?
like, huh? Am I allowed
I'm
to
not
say
saying
Ann Coulter's
anything.
attractive on your podcast?
No, you absolutely can.
Oh,
You
okay,
absolutely
just
can.
making sure.
Only if I can say that there's a Freudian explanation to this.
Yeah. Do you think she's gonna watch this? Because my personal email is.
I mean, I'm sure she's not that busy. So
yeah.
So Jesus. Well, and that's the thing is at the end of the day we have to be able to laugh and enjoy a laugh because, like we were saying, like it's as my spiritual advisor and all this, it's absolutely true.
I appreciate
laughter is critical, because in these dark times, man, when the Pax Americana has ended, when Donald Trump has closed the lid on that and there is no more stability, being able to laugh, even though he is the one who's trying to steal laughter from us and trying to dictate what is funny, we need to maintain a firm grasp on what is funny and an authority on what is funny and what is not funny, because that is the last thing that he's going to try to steal from us. And we have to be able to laugh at things, and of our accord, not out of misery.
I've never been more proud of American comedians than in the since Donald Trump got elected. If you look back at like the Daily Show, did you ever see those interviews with like Bill O'Reilly and Jon Stewart, or like Chris Wallace and Jon Stewart, where he would go on there and they would be like, well, why do you talk about Fox News the way that you do? And he's like, look, my show is not it's informed by an ideology, but it's comedy first, and the comedy is the art of comedy is pointing out the absurdity in the system for him, the absurdity and the corruption.
Absolutely.
And I apologize, I kind of lost where I was going with that.
No, and so,
I was just saying I apologize. I'm proud of the like comics like John Oliver Last Week Tonight, and Seth Meyers,
he's good, he's great,
and Stephen Colbert. I mean, you could argue and say that they are just riding a train, but for me, I would say that they're using the tool of comedy to get across the truth in a very polarized time, because as much as they have an opinion, their primary objective is to make you laugh.
Yeah. And the reality is that being able to laugh and make jokes at the expense of a wannabe dictator, I mean, it's very fucking scary.
And it's so funny that and this isn't obviously new with Donald Trump, but it's so funny that we are but it's become increasing that telling the truth, our political climate is so mired and covered in lies and half truths and dodging, that telling the truth now in a political situation is funny.
Right.
It's hysterical that the truth has become funny because you never see it anymore. But yeah,
and that's one of the tricks, and that's why I'm so glad that you joined me for this segment today. I hope our listeners are with us next time. I just want to go ahead and close out with one more quote by John F. Kennedy, where he says, because it's really symbolic of what it is that the virtuous American is in pursuit of. What kind of a peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana that's enforced on the world by American weapons of war. Not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace. The kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living. the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and to build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace for all time. And with that, I leave you, and I'll see you all next episode. Thanks so much, Mojo Mike, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That was a really good episode, and I'll see you next weekend. Have a good one.
My friends, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain a little. Number 1, it's free. 2, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you've ever been looking for to make a podcast in one place. Go ahead and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
It's easier to keep up the pace when you're younger. I'm here to remind you that it's also easier to get life insurance. Never forget that youth is a relative thing. You're younger today than you will be tomorrow, no matter what your actual age. The basic cost of life insurance is tied to that very fact. Therefore, the younger you are, when you buy a policy, the lower your premium. Also, the younger you are, the better your health is likely to be, which means you'll probably find life insurance easier to get. These are 2 very good reasons to see me. Right away, I'll show you how to get the most mileage out of your youth, no matter how old you are. I can help you guarantee tomorrow, today. Click on the link below and schedule an appointment as soon as possible. Thank you.